Boris is very good at saying things which he doesn't believe in, and he's very good at changing his mind. But whether he can unite the Conservative Party clearly remains to be seen. I think we have to be very clear that the Conservative Party is now the party of Brexit. The idea that there are Remainers and Leavers, I think, has gone. I think it's just a question of what form of Brexit is delivered. It's either this crashing out no-deal Brexit, which people were absolutely promised wouldn't happen, which would be, in the words of the Business Secretary, disastrous for our country, or whether it would be a bad Brexit, which is the government's own assessment based on the work that it did looking at all the different sorts of outcomes. So whether he'll achieve any of that, I really do not know, because I don't know how he's going to do it. He says he's going to do it by the end of October, but he can't tell us how.
Well, maybe he's going to do it with a bit of the bravado you talked about, by leaving that no deal on the table, by saying it can be done, by restoring confidence, and kind of silences the voices like yours that say it can't be done.
Well, silencing voices in a democracy, I don't think is a great idea, if I may say. Look, he isn't going to get some new marvellous deal, because the EU1 has made it very clear that they aren't going to reopen the negotiations. The withdrawal agreement, which Mrs May negotiated, and Boris, remember, was a part of her government, and he voted for it, and the Irish backstop. But in any event, they've made it very clear that that agreement is the only deal in town. There's nobody to negotiate with anyway, because the Commission won't be up and running until November. So he's not going to renegotiate. I mean, I'm afraid I think that's just a blatant fib.
In Brussels,
so
though,
what's he going to do? Is he going to crash out?
Anna, one of the things
I can't hear you. Sorry,
apologies. One of the things that we have heard since Theresa May is leaving is that the Europeans never believed Theresa May would walk away. They never believed that actually they would have to bend over and maybe deliver some of the things that she was asking for. So they had it all their own way. And actually, because Boris Johnson is a confirmed Brexiteer and he isn't showing any fear and he is suggesting that no deal stays on the table, they would perhaps be more compliant. They might be a little bit more fearful, and then they could be a bit of renegotiation there.
Look, you know, this is not like going away on holiday and negotiating with a market stall holder over some goods that you find on a market stall and you try and strike up a deal between you and the guy who's selling them. You know, this is big, serious stuff. And this idea that Mrs May didn't really believe in no deal, good, I'm glad she didn't believe in no deal if that's the case, because we know, as I say, in the words of her business secretary, it would be a disaster for our country. It would be the very worst outcome. And Boris, if he hasn't, needs to look at the government's own papers that show very clearly how bad crashing out without a deal would be for our country, and we should be under no illusions about that at all. The point I'm trying to get to is, how is he going to leave on October the 31st? Never mind all this daft bluster about he's big and strong and, you know, all this macho nonsense. It's not like that. He can't get no deal through the House of Commons because, quite rightly, we're putting the country's and our constituents' interests first. And time again, we have said we will not allow no deal. We won't vote for no deal because it's so bad for our country. So how is he going to get out on October the 31st?
Doing that then. We had Jo Swinson, new leader of the Liberal Democrats, on the show yesterday. She said she was talking to all sorts of people about forming an alliance to try and stop us being left in a position of no deal. She, of course, doesn't want Brexit at all. But would you consider working with the Lib Dems? Are you one of those talking to her? Do you expect other people to leave the Conservative Party and take on a stronger position? Because we know that there's many that are opposed to what Boris Johnson's trying to do as well.
Well, look, forgive me, quite a lot of questions. We already work across party. We work in the most astonishing way that we don't talk about, frankly, and I'm not going to divulge in public, because it is work which is, I think the British people, when the history books reveal how much we do work across party, I think they will appreciate that. So we absolutely hand in glove with the Libs, SNP, Plaid Cymru, sensible Conservatives, sensible Labour people, and we've done that throughout the last 3 years. So nothing new in that, and we'll continue to do that work, because what we are doing is we're putting the country's interests first, and that is the most important role of a Member of Parliament. You talk about whether other people will leave the Conservative Party. I genuinely do not know. All I do know is what the government's own evidence, their own assessments show. They show that whatever way you do Brexit, it is not good for our country, and in particular, no deal. We
All right,
simply
Anna.
aren't ready for it. That's why I think the best thing to do is get this back to the British people, let them have a final say on Brexit with that people.
All right.
Anna.
We're going to have to leave that there. Anna Soubry, thank you very much for joining us this morning. In the studio, we have the former International Development Secretary, Priti Patel, reportedly set for a new top job in Boris Johnson's cabinet. Good morning to you,
Good morning.
Priti. Nice to see you this morning. So following what was the disgrace of losing your previous job and having to resign and step down or getting sacked, how are you feeling about returning to the front line?
Well, I think importantly, look, we're going to have a new Prime Minister, and with that, he'll have a fresh mandate. And this will be change, because over the last 3 years, we've seen that nothing has changed. There'll be big change across Boris's government, which I think will be exciting. And there's something really important here. You've just been speaking to Anna Soubry. The important focus now has to be actually getting on and doing the job of delivering Brexit. And that's exactly where
we can come
Boris's
to that, can't we,
entire
Priti?
government has to be.
Because you're saying big change in the government. Let's talk about you personally, because we've got you here in the studio, and it's nice to have you here in the studio. But was there a fear when you lost your last job that you wouldn't be turning back to the cabinet? And how excited are you, potentially, to be getting this job a little bit later?
Well, look, I don't know what today will bring. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen today in terms of appointments and things of that nature. Everyone will just have to wait and see, and that's right and that's proper.
So you haven't had a
Exciting
heads up?
morning for you,
No,
though,
I haven't.
surely.
No, I haven't.
Have you slept much last night?
The excitement is actually about change. You know, I've always been a great supporter of Brexit. I campaigned for the referendum, the vote to leave. And I think, actually, the country is just fed up now, sick and tired of this malaise that we have, this sort of indecision that's just sort of like gripped the heart of Westminster. And really,
So have you texted Boris? Have you got his number? Have you
I congratulated him yesterday. Of
Did he
course
get
I
back to you?
congratulated him. I congratulated him. I saw him in Parliament yesterday because he came to address all Conservative MPs.
And did he say, I'll speak to you tomorrow?
No, he did not. And I don't know if there's a job coming or anything of that nature. But as I said, I'm excited for change, because we as Conservatives in government, we've got a great opportunity, actually.
Great opportunity.
You've got a
One of
great
the things that
challenge
he's
as well,
facing is these 100 days. We talk about, Kate was saying this earlier, the first 100 days of anyone's premiership is where you are judged. Usually there's a bit of a honeymoon period when a new leader comes in, whether they're president or prime minister. He is straight at the coalface.
This is a matter now of hitting the ground running, getting stuck into detail, preparedness on Brexit.
Detail which he's not notoriously good with, though, is
Well, actually, I disagree. I've worked with Boris in government, and I've known Boris for a long time. I also worked with him on his 2 mayoral campaigns, as well as the referendum to leave the EU. So detail is absolutely vital. He is forensic. And let's not forget, he was in government, so he has seen a lot of the work that led up to the preparedness. But there's a different style and a different approach, because quite frankly...
Should it be an all-Brexit cabinet?
We've had regressiveness for the last 3 years, where there's been no decisions. We've been talking our country down. And actually, we need to think about our place in the world, our standing in the world, our relationships with our friends and allies in Europe as well as other countries. And I think Boris can absolutely do that and deliver Brexit.
So what should it be, then? Should you have an all-Brexit cabinet? Because the maths are against you, aren't you, for getting anything through? Next week, it's predicted you're going to lose... The Tory party will lose that by-election, which leave you a majority of 1. Theresa May had more, and look at the struggles she had. And that's not even including some of the rumours of defections and leavings from the Tory party that are floating around. So how should he form his cabinet? I'm sure you'd love you to be one of them. Should it be a Brexit cabinet? Should he have room for others?
So first of all, I'm not as pessimistic, OK, about the way things are in the Conservative Party. We have a new leader, and the focus of every Conservative MP has to be to unite and get behind our leader. I mean, that is just a given, because Boris had a huge mandate as well from the Conservative Party.
He didn't do brilliantly at getting behind the last leader, though, isn't he? He might reap what he sowed there.
There's a different issue here. We've just had a leadership election. Boris has a mandate from the grassroots membership of the Conservative Party. These are the same members that voted for Boris that actually worked day and night to get people like myself elected to Parliament, and all Conservative MPs. Their expectation will be that Conservative members unite behind the leader and that we work night and day to deliver Brexit. But of course, at the same time, Boris spoke very clearly during the leadership contest of having a modern Conservative Party with all the talents and people that represent all aspects of the Conservative Party. And I saw that when he was Mayor for London, in the way in which he appointed people, the way that he worked to deliver. a fresh approach and agenda in London. And I've got no doubt that's exactly what he'll do in government with the Conservative Party to deliver Brexit, but actually take us beyond Brexit on all the domestic issues that your viewers are so focused on: education funding, more police officers on the streets. I know in my constituency, we desperately want more police officers on the streets. And that's the stuff really that matters to the British public.
Undoubtedly. Let's hope he gets at it very quickly as well. Priti, it's nice to see you this morning.
You.
Thank you for coming in. We look forward to a little bit later on when maybe we'll find out exactly whether you've got that new role.
You might get a text. It could be like Love Island for you. You never know.